Hello, my name is Keera Wilmoth, and I am a Master's of Social Work student at The Ohio State University. Today we will be talking about diversity and vulnerable populations. More specifically, we will be talking about asylum seekers and refugees. It is important to be aware of the ethical responsibilities that social workers have to clients. The National Association of Social Work Code of Ethics Ethical Standard 1.05 regarding cultural awareness and social diversity states that social workers should be both culturally humble and culturally competent. To best serve their clients, it is imperative that social workers take all the necessary steps to embrace cultures that are different from their own. Cultural competence and cultural humility are two incredibly important parts of being an ethical and responsible social worker. To be culturally competent means that one has knowledge about other cultures. A good way to become culturally competent is to read and study about other cultures' practices and customs. An example of someone that would be culturally competent would be a professor that teaches about intercultural studies or about various cultures. Cultural humility means to embrace the uniqueness and the value in all cultures. With that being said, it's important to embrace the differences that each culture holds. It means not to think that one culture is superior to another, but to embrace and love all cultures the same. For your cultural humility to be effective, it's important to have an open mind when interacting with others that are different than you. A diverse and vulnerable group is asylum seekers and refugees. Today, we will specifically be talking about homeless asylum seekers and refugees. However, first, let's learn about who asylum seekers and refugees are. Although they have incredibly similar definitions, their status as an asylum seeker or refugee is determined by where they claim asylum. An asylum seeker is someone who is seeking international protection, but their claim has not yet been granted. For example, if they leave their country of origin, then they go to another country and claim asylum, like the United States, they have to wait for their asylum to be granted. Traditionally, asylum seekers entering the United States processed by ICE and then go to their sponsor family's house in the United States and wait for their notice to appear and their court date that will dictate whether or not they are granted asylum. This court date was within their first year of arriving. Refugees, on the other hand, have already had their asylum granted before crossing into their new country. For this project, I interviewed a social worker who is a case manager for asylum seekers and refugees who are impacted by homelessness that are seeking refuge in an organization called La Posada Providencia in San Benito, Texas, just a few miles from the Mexico border. As a case manager for such a diverse and vulnerable group, it is important that client engagement is both empowering and warm. When engaging with these clients, the first step that he takes is to make the clients feel comfortable. Being aware of the trauma that they have inevitably endured reminds him to greet them with a warm smile, be respectful, and be patient. Like previously mentioned, being sensitive to their needs and trauma will allow him to connect with them in a way that is effective and efficient. Even after they have crossed into their new country, this group is still incredibly vulnerable to exploitation. Working to empower these clients could help protect them in the future. Another way that he engages with the clients is to ask them about their culture. Asking them about the foods that they like, their favorite music, and other culturally specific questions can help make them feel more comfortable and help encourage better engagement from both parties. Personally, when I am doing a client intake, I like to ask them who their favorite artist is and play their music. It gives me insight into their interests and helps put the client at ease in an unfamiliar environment. At La Posada Providencia, the staff take many steps to assess the clients in different ways. The first step is to do a client intake with each new client. These assessments are done with both individuals and family units. Client intakes involve asking the client questions, such as where they're going, what their country of origin is, their age, if they're pregnant or not, any legal matters that they are involved in, what mode of transportation they'll be taking to their final destination, and just other basic questions. If a client does not have a bus or plane ticket, La Posada Providencia helps connect them with resources that can purchase the ticket for them. Another assessment that we do with clients is called trauma assessments. These assessments allow us to connect the clients with the resources that they need. For example, doctors, mental health resources, or legal resources. At any time, the client is allowed to stop answering the questions. While doing these assessments, it is important to note the client's body language. If they are obviously feeling uncomfortable or are distressed, then the staff member should take steps to make them feel more comfortable. Client intervention is a key component to helping asylum seekers and refugees. A good way to do client intervention is to provide them resources. These resources, like previously mentioned, can include doctor's visits, mental health counseling, legal resources, connecting them with refugee cash assistance, and many other things. Additionally, La Posada Providencia has a goal to create follow-up appointments for clients that are at the shelter for an extended period of time. Because this population is so incredibly vulnerable, it is important to do everything that we can to ensure their safety. One intervention that La Posada Providencia has implemented is refusing to post any pictures of clients on any of their social media accounts. This helps prevent exploitation. Another key intervention that La Posada Providencia has implemented is to create a visitor, volunteer, and staff handbook on how to interact with the clients. Within this handbook, there are strict rules that state what is and is not appropriate to do with the clients. An example of this is not allowing any volunteers or visitors to take any pictures of the clients. A method of evaluation that La Posada Providencia does for their clients is to insert their information that was given from their client intake and their trauma assessment into the Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS. Their data is stored and compiled to give organizations better insights as to who the homeless population is in the United States and what their needs are. There are various other organizations that evaluate the clients. For example, ProBar, which is a pro bono legal organization, and Texas Refugee Services evaluate the clients and provide them with the services that they need. Immigration and asylum seeking are becoming more prevalent around the world. Because of this, there are many studies that have looked at how social service organizations should prepare for an increased number of asylum seekers and refugees. One study done by Nash, Wong, and Turlin in 2006 states that social workers must continue to evolve and adapt to social work methods that are ethical, culturally competent, and culturally humble as they work with immigrants, asylum seekers, and refugees. Another study done by Parker in 2000 states as social workers should advocate for asylum seekers and refugees and push for non-oppressive practice and policy. After working in La Posada Providencia, I can apply these two sources to my own practice. It is important that I advocate for better policy and less discrimination. I must continue to learn about other cultures and learn how to interact with them in an ethical and responsible way. If you have any questions about how to help asylum seekers and refugees through an ethical social work lens, please contact me at my OSU email. Thank you so much for listening.